Hey guys, Nightfall here with the tips for Blackrook Hold for Warlocks. There aren't a lot of things that Warlocks can do for Blackrook Hold. There's a couple, but just like Quarter Stars, nothing huge that Warlocks can do here that is really special. As you can see, I pulled the Troubled Soul in there. You don't want to do that in bolstering. It'll bolster the boss, which is really bad. And if you do pull it on Sanguine, like we did here, you got to be careful. You don't want it dying wherever the boss is going to be tanked, or especially in the middle, because if it dies dead center, the boss at his 50% will just sit in the Sanguine and just heal up to full while he's channeling, and it's just catastrophic. Like, keys over, well, not keys over, but might as well just wipe the boss at that point. As you can see, I am using the slow ring, but we found it was way overkill. Now, if you have a group that doesn't have really any stuns, any slows, any knockbacks, you may want to use it, but on a 26 with this group comp, we didn't even need it. Now, this was our first 26, so I used it just in case. In fact, yeah, it was the first 26 ever done, so we couldn't even go into like a VOD from another group and say, oh, they didn't need to use slows or whatever, because no one had done it. It was definitely overkill, so if you have a decent group, you're probably not going to need Slow Ring for this. And it's actually a huge damage loss to take Soul Ring, especially because for most of your execute with an execute ring, you can just sit there and DPS the boss if you're doing the strat that allows you to DPS the boss without any mechanics from 50 to 15%. But as you can see, I'm slowing the ghosts. If you're going to wear the ring, might as well go around, make sure you dot up all the ghosts, but watch the boss. You don't want Agony to fall off the boss because you want to keep that 15 stack. Now, again, you're going to see, really didn't need the slow ring for this, so I don't think most of you will find yourselves needing the slow ring. I personally prefer the execute ring on this because, look, I can just sit here for the rest of the fight from 35% to 15%, ignoring all mechanics because there are no mechanics, just executing the boss. Now, you'll notice I didn't start by telling you anything about talents, because you can run either ELT Seeds on this, or you can run the Sub-Rogue spec with Contagion and Soul Harvest. It all depends on how your group is pulling this, because we're going absolutely insane doing mega pulls. I really need Sow the Seeds as a Warlock here, but if your group's taking it slow, methodical, you're not going to go ahead and just pull 10 mobs, 20 mobs at once. You can go with the Soul Harvest and the Contagion build. I've done that as well for slower pulling groups, and it works absolutely fine, and it's really good for the bosses, especially on tyrannical weeks when these bosses get particularly difficult. Special note for whenever you're fighting champions, they will use their first shout always after they complete their first slam. So if you fear them and never allow them to cast their first slam, you can keep them from ever casting their shout. That can actually be a DPS increase for your group overall, because the health on all the mobs you're fighting never gets doubled, and even though you're taking a hit to your DPS, the fact that everyone else is doing full DPS instead of effectively having their damage halved, the rest of your group having their damage halved, it may actually be beneficial and faster for your group to go through if you try and delay their first shout as long as possible. Now, if you're doing the outrange strategy for archers and for the knife dance and for the cat, you're not really going to be in range of fear, so you're not going to be able to use that strategy. You know, you can stun with your Infernal, you can do all that, but might as well just use the stun from the Infernal or the interrupt from your Doomguard to proc Sephuz, and that's about it. Because if you're trying to outrange, you're all ranged, you come up here and, you know, you're the only person who runs into range of the archers because you're going to try and run in fear, you're going to get shot by all the archers, you're going to get the cat leapt on you, and you're going to get hit by knife dance, and you're going to die instantly because you're going to be the only person in range besides the tank. So really, you should probably just continue outranging everything here whenever possible. It's not always going to be possible, but really try to outrange all of these groups, because especially as a Clothy, all those things are physical damage. You're going to walk in there, especially on a higher key, and you are going to get one-shot, absolutely one-shot by any of these mechanics as a Warlock. Like, you'd have to go in rolling all your defensives to survive a leap from a cat, or one or more shots from an archer. But really, just stay outranged, unless your tank absolutely needs you to run into fear or something like that. For the second boss as a Warlock, the first thing that I can recommend is that you run Demonic Circle, because when she does her charge that leaves the fire behind, as a Warlock, well, really as anyone, it's going to do a lot of damage to you if you stand in the fire, and I believe it ticks every 0.5 seconds, and it's probably based on the game clock, so you'd probably be looking at, if you're bad luck, it ticks at 0.1 seconds after she charges and then 0.6 seconds. which you might not be able to get out of, and a double tick will kill you on higher keys. So instead, what I do is I place my teleport circle in the back of the room, and as soon as I see her character model come my direction, as soon as it's coming for me to drop the fire to me, I instantly hit the teleport. She'll miss hitting me. I might even be able to avoid the charge damage. That's a little bit tougher to do, but you'll definitely avoid any fire damage whatsoever, especially if you have glaive on you. Even though you're a warlock, if you're not draining while you're dropping that fire, because you got to move into position, so your health's going to tick down. If it's also on your healer, they're not going to be healing you, so your health's going to tick down real low if you're moving in for charge, and both of you have the charge on you. So you really want to take 0 damage from that fire. While kiting for the beam, just be reapplying your dots. You don't really have time to stop and drop UAs or drain or anything like that. Just make sure you've got Corruption and Agony rolling on everything. That's the best you can really do. When you do have the glaive debuff on you, be sure to be draining as much as possible. Obviously, don't let your DPS suffer. Don't cap on shards. Don't miss your chance for like a good execute on one of the ads or something like that, unless it's going to kill you to stop draining. But at that point, if you're going to die from not draining, your healer's already falling so far behind. I really don't think your group's going to do it unless you're about to kill the boss. So if you have glaive, just make sure you put in some drains in there, even if you've got some shards to work with, because your healer will really need the help on higher keys. On the trash after the second boss, check with your group if they're doing a mega pull, if they want the slow ring. If they don't need it, they don't need it. There's some groups that won't need it because they'll have other slows, like possibly from a mage, or they might have something like Ring of Peace that'll help, or they might just not need a slow at all to handle such a large pull. If you're not doing a big pull, regular AoE gear, obviously. But if you're doing a big pull, check, do they want you to wear the slow ring? And this is just a great spot to AoE, but also they can get spread out and your damage can start to suffer when they start to get all spread out, because your Seed of Corruption is going to hit like 5 mobs out of 20, because they're going to be all spread out in a huge line all the way down the hallway, which is really no good for Warlock AoE. Things like mages and boomkins and all that can get a little bit more damage out of that spread AoE than a Warlock can, although your dots will be ticking, so it's not all bad. Now, also for the big Wrathguard dudes, when they start doing the channel that really hurts the tank, Fear will interrupt that. So if you see them starting to cast it, because it does a cast then a channel, once they're about halfway through the cast, if you hit Fear, the Fear will hit right as they start the channel, and it'll interrupt the channel, save your tank. But you can only do that on one target at a time. If you got your Infernal, you can possibly stun it with the Infernal, but really that's about all that a Warlock can do for this. When you get up to the Dominators, I absolutely 100% all the time, every key, every level, every affix is, if you're pulling these Dominators, wear the slow ring. If you got the slow ring, wear the slow ring. Doesn't matter who else you have in your group who might be able to slow, because what if they die? You need these slows always 100% up. Like, a couple bats got through and nearly killed Fired Up there because my slow didn't hit them, and his slow didn't hit them. Nearly killed them because there wasn't a slow on them. Because these sick bats, you need to give your group as much time as possible to get away from them. If you're pulling all 6, your tank can't touch the ads, so you're going to need to have them slowed so they don't ever reach your tank. These Dominators, I mean. You don't want them reaching your tank if you're pulling all 6. So you really need permanent slows on everything, and it's just not worth the risk of not wearing the ring. For Warlocks, just like I recommended in the main Blackrook Hold video, if you're on higher keys, just go with the Avoidance and the Pride As, alright? Because it's not worth risking it. The damage you take from both the charge and the stomp is all physical, and you're wearing cloth. It doesn't matter that we have our own absorbs that we generate on ourselves. They just absorb a set amount, and you really need the percent reduction from avoidance. So if you don't have an avoidance set, I recommend saving every piece of avoidance gear that you find, because you really need them for all of these keys. And obviously drop your lines good, all that special stuff. That's just basic stuff that was covered in the main video. But here, you're not going to want to soak any charges on higher keys. Lower keys, you can do it, pop a defensive. And your Pride As and your Warlock defenses just aren't going to line up properly with these guys' stomps, so you may just need to rely entirely on a potion plus your avoidance gear to keep you alive on higher keys for at least one of the stomps, maybe even 2 of the stomps throughout, because it'll just slowly desync from your Pride As, from your Dark Pact, from your Unending Resolve. It's all just going to slowly desync, because I believe it's on something like a 25-second timer, somewhere around there for the stomp, which just doesn't line up really well with anything. And on a longer fight, it's just going to add up and up and up and up. Now, later on in the fight, you or someone else may just drop a terrible line. And if a bad line drops, don't worry. Don't worry at all. No one in your group needs to worry because you're a Warlock. What Warlocks can do is they can drop a gateway. So if you tried to walk across these lines, the Fell Vomitus is what it's called. If you try to walk across these lines on a high key like a 26, 27, 28 in Mythic gear or whatever is high for whatever gear you happen to be wearing, you'll die. It'll just tick you down, kill you in 1 or 2 ticks. You won't make it across the line. But the gateway moves you so fast through the air, even though it counts you as crossing across the ground, it doesn't get a chance to tick, and everyone can use it. So if you have something bisecting your 2 safe areas, put a gateway down. Everyone can take a gateway to get across if they don't have some way to teleport themselves across, or some immunity or something that they can use to cross. That way your gateway can actually save your entire group if someone or multiple people get trapped in a really tiny area filled with all this stuff and nowhere to move. Coming up on the last boss, this guy is the reason that no matter what level the key is, I always take Dark Pact. Because this guy, he really hurts, especially on the higher keys. Really on the higher keys, he is excessively deadly to cloth wearers because the stinging swarms do physical damage, and also the Shadow Bolt Volley. I'll do something like I'll dismiss my pet so I get a bigger shield. That's something I'll touch on in a different video later, why that works and some other tips similar to that. But I'll just pop all my defensives, and hopefully the Dark Pact will help keep me alive for when I get swarms. Other than that, there's nothing really special you can do with this guy. If you wear Execute Ring and you get a good sort of timing, I guess I'd call it, is where he comes up from being down in his phase, this phase, when he's, I just call it down, like up or down. And if he comes up at around 30 to 40%, you can spend so much time executing with the bonus damage and really just capitalize on that you can do a lot of damage with the Execute Ring. That's why I generally will run Helm Ring with this. If I don't need Pride As, I find I don't really need Pride As unless it's a really high Tyrannical. I was being excessively safe on this one. I didn't really need to. I could have survived just fine without it for this particular kill. There are other kills where, you know, I've just flat out died, even with Pride As. So I'd say avoid Pride As if you can, because you can really capitalize on the bonus damage with the Execute Ring. And now with the 4-piece Tier 21, I didn't have it in this video. This was like, I think, right after the release of Antorus, so I didn't have 4-piece at this point, I want to say. So that's why I'm using Neck Ring instead of, you know, Helm Neck or Helm Ring. But really, Pride As if you need it, try to avoid it, and probably run Dark Pact for this. And there's nothing really else special that you can do for this boss. You can try and drain through any of the swarms that are on you, but you're going to get stunned. Make sure to dot up the swarms that are on you. That's really all you can do, because they're going to keep interrupting UAs and drains that you try to put onto them, or try to put onto the boss. So you're really not going to get much done until your group can help free you. So really all you can do to help yourself is to put some dots up on these swarms on yourself. Definitely dump UAs onto someone else's swarm, because even if they don't tick very much before the swarm dies, you get a refund. You get refunded all the shards for any UAs that didn't go their full duration. So there's, oh, it's only a DPS increase. There's not only no loss, it's a DPS increase to start like dumping everything into these swarms. Now, I didn't do it for this swarm that you see here because it's on the tank. It's actually healing the tank because monks can use it to heal themselves. But if it's on another player, dump UAs, get that execute on the swarm for when it drops below 35%, and the full refund on the shards so that you can dump right back into it. And obviously, drain the swarms when you can. Obviously, you can't really do it very well on yourself, but when it's on someone else, drain the swarm, get that extra shard, get your extra Tormented Souls, get your stacks of Wrath Consumption. You're not going to get a 5-stack. You're going to get, you know, 2 or 3 stacks. Yeah, you can get a 3-stack of Wrath of Consumption on this boss, but I don't think you can really get above that, because I think you're only ever going to see 3 swarms in between each down phase, and Wrath of Consumption's always going to fall between each down phase. It's not going to be swarms like right as he goes down and right as he comes up, and even then, there's still more than 20-second gaps, so you're going to lose your stacks. But like right here, if you're running Execute Ring, I would have gotten a lot of time on that. Well, I did, but that's Execute Ring. I didn't have 4-piece at this point, and, you know, I didn't have Helm, and I was going defensive, so... And God, I must have been 10 item levels lower than I am now, so a lot less damage than I do now. Now, you know, 970 some gear, 970, 975, you can pump 6 I could probably, with good procs, even get 7 million DPS on this boss. And, you know, you can do obviously lower with lower gear, but still comparably high. The only thing that can really keep up with a good Warlock and single target gear on this boss is maybe a comparably geared Windwalker Monk. Other than that, Warlocks can absolutely decimate this boss, but you gotta watch out because those stinging swarms will shred you. Other than that, that's really all you can do for Blackrook Hold. Blackrook Hold isn't really a Warlock special one, but Warlocks are very useful here. With their slow ring, their good AoE, and their good boss damage, it's really beneficial for groups to bring Warlocks here, but they can't do anything that's super cheesy or super special. But that's all for now. Take care, guys.